Exodus 19:5 and 6 says that Israel, if obedient, would be the royal priesthood, the Kahunas. Modernly, Yahusha is the big Kahuna, the high priest. We don't see any active high priest in this world, because he is the Mashiach, and we are the body of Mashiach. Those that are obedient, those that are the remnant. So being this, we are supposed to speak, thus says Yahuwah, bring forth the laws. A lot of times in doing such, it's, I guess, a bother. Some feel as if you're, always wanting to point to the mistakes of mankind, when our lack of remembrance is what was the problem of why we constantly repeated our errors. I get it. We should definitely praise one another. It says, let another man praise you in the text. I think that's in Proverbs, but I may be incorrect. But yes, we should be praising one another and acknowledging, one another, but not to the point that we're idolizing one another. I say that I'm a Kahuna, but I don't need it as a title. I just need to go forth in life and walk out my calling. Many may not see it on me because, for one, they don't view me as a teacher or someone that brings forth things that they benefit from. And that does not mean that I'm not bringing things forth that others benefit from, but they don't receive. Everybody's not meant to water everywhere. I throw forth seed just like any other moray or teacher or leader. They pour out seed, and it's going to attach to the ground that it's supposed to grow in. Maybe I'm not the one that's supposed to give you seed or nourishment, water. That's okay. But for those that I am meant to do so, let them be. Don't interfere. Don't dig up what has been planted. Me being a Kahuna is not something that I sought out. It's just something that I was called and recognized from. When I was dealing with life prior to, I guess, my calling, I was out here just doing anything because I didn't expect to live long. Then, of course, I ended up living longer than I exceeded the number that I thought I would live. So, in that, I was silent a lot of times, and now people say, well, you talk too much. That may have some truth to it. Sometimes I maybe do need to silence myself. But the thing is, there's so much in me, and I don't know what time frame I have on this earth, and if I don't pour it out of me, then I haven't done my job. I haven't done what I've been called to do. Now, again, not everybody's going to receive from me. So when I do notice that someone won't receive from me, I keep it moving. I cut off from that dialogue, unless it's like on social media. People say, man, you be going at it with people, or you be going back and forth. And I'm like, do you realize that social media, though it seems to be only for, I guess, foolishness and entertainment, I use it for those things too. I must say, I still have an inner child, but the lessons that I learned there's so much things that I've learned from social media that school didn't teach me. Even it prompted me to study so many different things, because some of the stuff that was brought up is like, man, I had not a clue. So when I have a debate or interaction with somebody, that's iron sharpening iron. That friction is a good thing for those that use the dialogue that's going forth to study, to learn for themselves. Just recently, I wore a long shirt, And, I had a guy that, I've seen as an ally in many other times, basically said I was dressing as a woman in a woman's attire. I could have easily got offended and blocked him and everything, but I used that as a moment to teach. I started sharing information, and some people may see it as, oh, you going back and forth with him. But I guarantee there were more people that read that dialogue than interacted with the post. There were people that maybe didn't like it, didn't do anything, but they read that interaction and they maybe got something from it. Where I showed how Aaron was basically made a long shirt. And even prior to that, I think that was Exodus 20. Basically, when if they were to go upstairs, their nakedness would be uncovered. So it's obvious their garment had something that exposed the nakedness through the bottom. If you get up higher than the next person, the one below you can see your nakedness. So then in Exodus 28, it shows where there were breeches made. Breeches, underwear. Many try to make these to be pants because, they say, oh, well, it had to be pants. But, if you check the historical record, you see that Israel didn't wear pants, and pants were not created till much later. These breeches actually went down to the thigh. If you touch your hand now down to your thigh, you see your thigh is above your knee. That's underwear or boxers, shorts. That's not pants. Because if it said to your knee, it would say to your knee, but it says to your thigh. When you go below your knee, you come down to your calf. So it is not even calf long, it's above the knee, it's thigh high. Those are not pants. And you're wearing that under the long shirt. So what? That would be covering your loin area, your crotch. This is for the priests that would be going up to the altar and thus sometimes walking upstairs, and those beneath them would be able to look up. And what would they see if they did not have the breeches on? Under their long shirts, they would see their genital areas, their nakedness. A lot of times I see people go into the book of Leviticus also and try to put Leviticus on everybody and not realize Leviticus was special to the priests. Now, I do believe that the remnant are the royal priesthood, so they should adhere to what's in Leviticus. But first, you have to come to the understanding or comprehension that you're a remnant first before you be able to walk. You have to kind of crawl first before you walk. So you can't give somebody, I guess, the biggest bite when they've only been able to take a little chew. Someone that's been able to only accept milk and you give them meat, you're going to choke them out and probably even kill them. Me in my youth, when I first came into this awakening, I was definitely serving people big pieces of meat and not realizing that I had just got on meat myself and it was not effective. It was running people away. Sometimes when you're talking to people, they can't take correction. They can't take chastening, even if you say it with the most subtle, soft voice. They can't take it because they're not used to it. Sometimes you have to let people just live life and find out. And one of the biggest things that I've known from my experience is that a lot of times those that are teaching, if they go back to the age range of who they're trying to teach now, they were not even where that person is at that moment. I was talking to a 24-year-old about some of these things, dealing with Yah, and I'm like, man, at 24, I was wilding, and that was right before I got married the first time. I was wilding. I was out there just doing whatever, and basically giving up on myself because I was just sex here, sex there. I was just doing so much, and I'm like, man, doing violent stuff, doing just so much stuff, and I just didn't see a future. And this 24-year-old has, I guess, thoughts towards future life. Was even asking about the Hebrew thing. They was thinking about their spirituality and all these things. Though I was claiming to be a Christian around 24, I definitely was not living according to the book. I wasn't eating pork, but that was about it. When it came to sexuality and things like that, I was out of hand. I think I ain't gonna go into my whole exploits, because I don't want to, I guess, revel in that and make it seem, like something that one would want to attain, because it was utter debauchery where I was into. It's nothing. It's right now it's a shame to me. It's nothing that at that time I took it as pride, a badge of honor, but now no. And so I don't want anybody to repeat that. And then, with me having 3 daughters, there's no way I would want one of my daughters to run into a guy that was like I was then. No way. No way. And my son, no way I would want him to be like that man that I was at that time frame. So I want to be the example of a kahuna, a priest in my household. That's why, when people come to my household, they feel like it's so many rules and stuff like that. But this is sanctuary. This is an altar, or it's not an altar, but it's a sanctuary. We have a lot of fellowships and gatherings here, because we, do ministry out of here. But things that I don't approve of, as far as ministry-wise, I don't allow in my home. I don't want any fornication happening in my home. Don't want any adultery happening in my home. I don't want any homosexuality happening in my home. Drinking is not a sin, but we don't drink here. Now if somebody, if we were doing a feast day and somebody wanted to have a drink, then I probably wouldn't have an issue, because, the feast days have that. But they definitely would not be getting drunk in my home. I don't allow smoking on my property. It's so many different things, that I don't allow. I don't really cussing is not something major to me. I see them as just words and stuff like that. But I don't want somebody just being lewd with themselves. If you say a word here too, I just look and just keep it moving. But it's like, seriously, that's not a major hiccup to me. But you're not gonna be blaspheming, and stuff like that, or you're not gonna speak against my belief system and stuff like that. You can leave if that's gonna be the case, because again, I am the priest of this home, the royal priest, the kahuna. So I just wanted to talk a little bit. I'm about to get ready to go in. Got one of my old shirts on, wearing it, still in good condition. I've had this shirt for probably about 5 years now, still in good condition. But yeah, get ready to go to work. So shalom, ahava, and be the kahuna in your home. I sat up underneath the big kahuna, Yahusha, and he sits up under our sovereign and Father, Yahuwah. See, open my eyes. The sun's out. It's a nice, beautiful day. All right, but shalom. Shalom. Yada Yahuwah.